Hey Wompers, and welcome back to a new tutorial. In this one, we'll be making some yummy pancakes and give them some juicy syrup, as well as some other extras. This is beginner friendly and will teach you a lot of general tips and tricks on creating. So feel free to follow along and let's have some fun. So let's get started and hover over the top bar where we find our primitives menu and grab a basic cylinder. If we hover over the sides of the cylinder, we can see that we can scale it down through these handles, and at the right we also have the primitives objects properties menu where we can make changes like rounding it up. On the top we can then also make change to color. I'm going for a fairly light pinkish tone here for the plate, giving it a bit of roughness, maybe also a bit of mattiness, really up to you, feel free to play around with the materials. And then we're just making a copy, pressing Ctrl Z, Ctrl V, also scaling it a bit smaller from the inside or from the center here, and turning it into a negative in the object's properties menu. Now you can see we make a cut, but it's a bit of a harsh cut, so we add a bit of gooping to it as well, and that makes us have a really nice, lovely plate shape. It's easy as that. We can also go into our negative and change the color to a more lighter tone. Like this, we have a bit of a lighter color on the inside, which might look really nice, really up to you. And then when we're happy with that, we can go into the scene list, select both of them and group them together into a union. We can then call this union plate and close it down. Next, we want to grab another cylinder from the primitives menu, scale it down again, and this is going to be our first pancake. We also do want to round it up again, just like we did before, and then we can also go ahead and give it a color. I'm starting with a fairly light color here for the pancakes because I want to melt it together and give it a bit of a more complex shape with a more burned version of this cylinder. So I'm copying one more version. I'm just dragging it out slightly and giving this a darker tone. And now you can see we have some hard seams between the colors. We can fix that by increasing a bit of goop strength, just a little bit, maybe 2 or 3. And I also rotate it a little bit into the other one, just like so it becomes a bit more smooth. I'm doing this one more time, and here you can also just use the very basic round cylinder as your pancake. I'm just trying to show you how you can extend your shape to have a bit more of a imperfect shape, a bit more of a, natural and more advanced shape. And with that we can also have some color gradient in there as well. So I think this looks lovely. Now that we have it, we can select all of them in the scene list and turn them into a group instead of a union, because we will copy them a few times now, and then we can put all copies together inside of a union. So now I'm just copying the pancake. You can easily copy objects if you hold down Alt and then drag it out of there. On a Mac it would be Shift, and with each copy I'm slightly rotating the pancake around, and like that we get a lot of variety because of the more advanced shape that we gave the pancakes. And once we have 3, I'm just copying all 3 of them together and rotating them again. Like this we can very easy and quick expand our pancakes to now have a full plate. And now we can select all of our groups together and bring them inside of a union that I'll just call pancakes. So now it's time for the juice. Let's give it some syrup. For that we're getting out another cylinder once again. It's quite a heavy cylinder based build. And we also want to increase the roundness again. Roundness really helps to keep things more organic, more natural. And then we also want to go in and change the color. For the syrup material, we want to give it a fairly light brownish tone, a bit of roughness, and a very high transmittance, which is basically our see-through material. And yeah, since the syrup is kind of see-through and a bit of shiny, I think that's a good material for it. We then want to copy our shape and give it a bit of gooping. We don't need to worry too much about the bumps here, we just want to expand our syrup over the pancakes, make it kind of flow over them, and yeah, just give it that juice. We'll take care of the bumps in a bit. For now, I'm just expanding it with more cylinders. Here again, just holding it down Alt while copying. I'm making it go a bit to the edges because I want to let it flow down next there. But now to get rid of the bumps and make it more smooth, we want to copy one of our cylinders. We want to scale it really big so it covers all of the others. And then we also want to turn it into a negative to cut from it. But to make that work, we need to bring it to the bottom of the scene list so it affects all the primitives above it basically. So I'm making this once, making a hard cut, and then I'm basically copying the same shape again, but this time giving it a bit of gooping, and in that way we don't make it look as hard but more natural and a bit more rounded up. So next it's time to get out a curve primitive. Curve primitives are really powerful and allow for really cool organic shapes. For this one we want to go into the curve settings, we want to bring it into position, change it to a cylinder and increase some roundness, density and reduce the goop strength to around 5 to 10. Next we want to go into the point settings, make sure you're there because only there you can scale the primitive down as well as increase the roundness. So then we want to basically just rotate it so it's like basically fitting the edge here. For that you just want to hover over the handles of the corners of the primitive. And there you have the option to rotate along the 3 axes. And once we have placed it, we see that right now it's very hard. There's no real gooping going on. And that is because our curve right now is in its own union. And it needs to be inside of the same union as the other primitives, or just like as it is right now in no union altogether. Next, I'm just going into one of the primitives and saving the material from there that we created. I'm calling it syrup, and then I can click on our curve primitive and equip our material from the top bar here. Like this, we make sure we have the same exact color on our curve as well, and same material of course. So now I'm just expanding the point, scaling them a bit smaller or bigger, and really making it flow down there. Here it's really just up to you what looks natural to you. You can also look at references here. It's obviously something that I did in the beginning as well. And then I'm just copying the whole curve to extend it a bit quicker. But I'm also going in and deleting some of the points again to make individual changes to it. For example, I'm letting it flow over that one pancake that's sticking out a bit, just because I think that looks a lot better and more natural, and it's a cool little extra here. And then once we come to the bottom of the plate, I also let it flow a little bit on the plate. It's just those little details that make creations a lot cooler in the end, I think. So now that we have that and it's looking all beautiful, let's bring those all together into one union and call it syrup. Now the next thing we can do is add some more extras to it. For example, we can grab a new cube from the primitives menu, scale it down and create a little piece of butter that's laying on top of it. The cube we can actually scale on all axes or stretch on all axes, and of course also give it some roundness. Let's do that, bring it into the position where we want it. You can also rotate it a little bit inwards, and then we can give it a very light yellowish color, a bit of roughness, maybe a bit of transmittance as well. Feel free to play around with the materials and what feels right to you. And then I'm also extending it with some more things like some blueberries here. For that, I'm just rounding up a cylinder. I'm going into the color, giving it a very saturated kind of blue color, giving it a bit more roughness, bit of translucency, then copying the same shape, just turning it up and scaling it smaller from the center, turning it into a negative, which now makes us have a very hard cut. It's quite too hard, so we give it a bit of gooping here, and that makes it very smooth. What I also like to do is give the negatives a bit of a darker color that almost gives it some ambient occlusion kind of shadows. I'm then turning this into a group, calling it blueberry, just placing it and rotating it and scaling it, copying it. You know, this is how you create a bit of variety in it. You just copy your model, you rotate it a little bit, scale it smaller or bigger, and yeah. It's very easy to do that. Once you have one or two, you can expand them together as well. And I think it really adds a lot to it. And now that we have that, we can come to the presentation, we turn off the grid floor and go into the backdrops menu. Here we can change our background color, I'm also going for a bluish tone here. I think that looks really nice together with the blueberries and the almost complementary pancakes. And then I'm going in and changing the global lighting. And here I always say, really take your time, guys. Choose your global lighting and play around with them. It changes so much about how your creation looks and can improve the whole creation so much. So I'm playing around with that, and then I'm also playing around with the exposure of it. This is the brightness of your whole scene basically. And then I'm also adding some individual lights. I'm just grabbing a spherical light and I'll play around with that. I usually like to give it some rim light, and you can also change the color as well as the luminance of your light. You can also level up your creation a lot. Feel free to play around with that yourself. And then once we're fully happy with our creation, we can go and publish it to the community. For that, we click on publish at the top right. Here we can choose our thumbnail on how it will be displayed on the Discover page. Choose a title, add some hashtags. Those are labels that people can click on or search now for as well. You can share your Womp and also change your copyright settings if you don't want other people to remix your projects, for example. You then just click on publish and share your creation with the world. You can make all the people hungry with your yummy pancakes. And yeah, we are really excited to see your versions on the Discover page, so I really hope you guys enjoyed following along and creating some yummy pancakes yourself. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.